Hello, my friends. Welcome to Lorena's Labyrinth today. If you are a returning visitor, thank you so very much. If you're a newbie, this is the second video where I talk about things like ease of transition, but I'm not so much talking about ease of transition in today's video. Just for people to be aware, I am following on from that, some of the conversations that we discussed in last week's video, in last week's yarning, which you'll find on the yarning playlist. What I'm doing today is basically giving you information on how I receive messages, different ways. There's a lot of different ways, but some of the main ones that I've found to be very helpful, especially during dark times when I felt that my capacity to actually receive the messages, I've been dubious in regard to my own abilities, shall we say, because it's been interrupted. But we'll talk about that as we go through the video. So I do talk about that. I also do give you a number of different experiences today, really talking about how I managed to learn different things through lived experience. But also at the end of the video, I am putting in some strategies because the world has gone crazier than even normal. We've got craziness all around the world at the moment, and I fully understand if people are feeling unsafe. So at the end of this video, I have just put in some techniques and strategies and referring you over to a couple of other videos that I've made, which I believe will be helpful to help you feel safer during these crazy times. Now, I don't care. Right, hear this right now. I don't care if you guys don't believe in these strategies. You have choices. You have free will as well. You don't have to give these things a go. What I'm doing is I'm offering you some suggestions to give it a try. Now, if you've got an open mind, you'll give it a try, and you will just establish for yourself if it feels right or true and if it makes a difference. Now, if you don't notice anything, that's fine. Nothing ventured, nothing gained. But if you do it, these activities, especially the protection ones and the invocation and that, and you find positive change, then it's going to be confirmation for you that actually this stuff really exists, even though we have no physical evidence before our eyes that it works. So anyway, without further ado, I'm going to encourage you to have an open mind and crack on with the video. And in case I forget, at the end of the video, I'm just basically asking you all to take care and be safe. If you hear the squeaking, sorry, that's the darling doggy has decided now's a really good time to play with his toy. Sorry about that. So in last week's video, I talked about what I call the etheric telephone line, which is basically where when a spirit passes over the other side, when we think about them, that's what creates the energetic signal, the line to them, which of course they will respond to. However, I really feel it's important for you to know a few things about how energy works if you're not aware of it to start with. And most mediums are going to tell you, if you were to have this conversation with them, what I'm going to tell you now, the same thing basically. I've known mediums who have lost children or partners who will go and see other mediums to get messages from their loved ones, and this is because they are not able to connect with them personally or directly, and I'll explain to you why. It's actually because they are so emotionally attached to the person. It becomes a block. It's a barrier to receptivity. So to put this into perspective, okay, whether you're a medium, whether you're Joe Blow walking down the street or whatever, if you've lost a loved one and your entire being is screaming out, I just want to speak with them because you're really suffering this space of loss, then your energy, your personal energy is vibrating with the I don't have, I can't have, I'm grieving, there is loss, there is lack, I despair, right? And energetically, the universe responds to this kind of energy, fulfilling your unspoken desire with an energy of absence and lack. Okay, so if you want to know more about that, we can talk about that in a different video because this video is getting long. But another reason why even a medium may struggle, it's the same as anybody else, they're people too, is that we may miss noticing their presence because we're so busy with the course of our day, as I stumble over my words. So when we feel their presence or think about them because they've actually presented to us when we're busy doing our days, we can easily dismiss their presence telling ourselves, I'm being fanciful, I'm being off with the fairies or whatever. So the dream state or our sleep state is usually the best way that our loved ones can communicate with us. It's certainly a common one that we find. And this is because when we're in the sleep state, we're not actually actively obstructing the connection or the communication. So if you're the type of person who's found yourself being woken from a deep sleep state of, anywhere between 12 a.m. and 3 a.m., and you've woken from a dream believing or feeling as though that loved one has presented to you, or that you've seen them or whatever, and they've told you something, I would put this down to, you've actually had a visitation, and that's great. Don't dismiss it as being off with the fairies. And this is one of the reasons also you'll find that certainly people like myself will turn around and tell you that when you are doing your invocations and prayers to connect with the spirit of the people that you've loved that have transitioned to the other side, or even your guides and your angels, that you state that you're open to receive this communication or guidance, and you will actively work on your personal energy to raise your vibration and turn this grief and loss into gratitude, love, and surrender. And this is a matter, or I guess, very simplifying it down to really simple stuff, is the acceptance that they don't have a body anymore. That's okay, but the love that remains between you both, that stays, that doesn't go. You still have that love. And then also this matter of having gratitude for the fact that you had this physical experience of love with them, and for the joy that they brought to your life while you all had physical bodies. And then there also becomes this acceptance that at the divine time, in the divine way, under grace, you will both be reunited, and there will be no barriers or impediments to communications, because you're communicating at the same level, if you like, heart to heart, throat chakra to throat chakra, all of this kind of stuff. Now, I will also definitely acknowledge here, for people who have lost infants or children, the only thing that I can say that may help, I hope it will, for some people it might be distressing, so trigger warning here. I was informed by Spirit years ago that the loss of a baby, or even a child who is still in their childhood, while this is a very difficult thing as a parent, I would imagine, to address, I think it would be, because we're still humans, it would just be awful. But the point is that even as a child, children come in with a divine plan. And so what the communication was, that sometimes the soul of the child may only need to be born for a very short period of time to fulfill whatever purpose their divine plan is, which of course we don't remember this on a conscious level. And I think in some ways, whether it's the death aspect or not, the transition aspect and early transition, one of the messages I also got around about the same time was that our children choose us as part of the divine plan, and that we have been specifically chosen because we are the perfect parents to offer the perfect space for this soul's, for this soul to achieve what is needed for its soul growth. Okay, so that's something a lot of children who aren't happy with their parents struggle with. And I'm talking about adult children. My parents were X, Y, and Z. Well, it's so tempting once you know this kind of information to go, well, you know what, you chose us, or you chose them. And now the idea is to learn what it is, or to remember what it is they were trying to show you, or teach you at a soul level beyond this physical existence. Anyway, look, regardless of whether a person has transitioned in the early stages of physical existence or in the later stages, it is still possible to connect with them while they're in spirit form. So let's now talk about how our dreams can act as messengers. So at different times of my life, bearing in mind our emotional state can actually interrupt and impact on our capacity to receive our messages, I have struggled to consciously connect with my guides, and I've had to rely on my dream state for the messages that they've been trying to translate to me. Anyway, usually when this is happening, when it's a divine message and there is no doubt about it for me, it happens when I get recurring dreams. So I have I'm going to discuss a couple of them that had rather a profound impact on me at a particularly difficult point in my life. I was extremely distressed. And I was having a recurring dream about a bear, and I was getting frightened by it, and I was thinking that my protection wasn't working. And anyway, the recurring dream was occurring every night for about 2 weeks, and I was seeing this great big bear. And as I would have the dream, this bear would grow in my dream state. It would start off looking like a peaceful bear, and then it would grow bigger and bigger until it appeared to be ferocious to me, and I would wake up, obviously frightened. So eventually what I did was I invoked my angels and guides to provide the meaning of the dream. I figured if I was having it recurring, then it was obviously, in my fear-based state, I was thinking that I was attracting negativity towards me and I wanted to be protected from it. But otherwise, trying to be open-minded about it, I wanted to have the message of the dream made clear to me. So I asked them to clarify it for me. Which is really interesting because what they did was I was then compelled. This is when I became interested in dream symbolism and I started studying dream symbolism, was because I was guided to go and Google the meaning of a bear in the dream state. And what I learned was actually that based on Native American wisdom, the bear is actually my animal totem based on my birthday. And of course, that carries meanings. I'm not going to talk about what they are. I'll let you do a Google if you're interested in that kind of stuff. You can find out what the bear means. So it was giving me some divinely guided wisdom. Now, the other underlying lesson here, besides the bear meaning, is this lesson of fear, that what we fear grows and expands in our minds. So it's really important to manage and release our fears and not allow ourselves to become paralyzed by it. And another situation where I was getting divine communication was around about the same time frame, and I can't remember if this was before or after the bear dreams, okay, but it was through the same period of my life. I was waking each morning to a song, the lyrics and the music, and I didn't know either the name of the song or who sang it or anything like that. I'd never heard it on the radio because I didn't have a radio that worked, and of course, just a reminder, this was during really heavy days for me. And where historically, before I hit these heavy days, I actually used to go out bush quite a lot. And I would, generally, there was a couple of high spaces, cliff tops, if you like, that I used to sit on and meditate and do energy work. And sometimes I would actually do singing and chanting, things like the oms and the ahs and stuff like that as part of energizing and raising my own vibration. However, because of the family circumstances and the challenges that I was facing, I lost a lot of my joy in life and I started to isolate and I started shutting myself down. So this was all about the same time. I stopped doing all of those healthy energetic behaviors and even healthy social behaviors that I'd done historically. And anyway, so point being, I would wake every morning and it had gone on for about 10 days where my waking moments, if you like, say 6:30 in the morning when I was waking up, actually, who knows, probably a bit earlier than that. Basically, my eyes would be opening and this song and this tune was playing in my head like a mad woman. I was starting to feel that I was going insane. And because I was stuck in the grief, I was failing to link it together, but I think it was around about day 10 I'd realised that, if it's a recurring thing, there must be a message there that I was missing. And because I didn't know the song lyrics or who wrote the song, I wasn't able to pick the message up. So funnily enough, one of these days in the dark days, probably about day 10 of me being woken with this song, I happened to go down the shops, which was something that I had been avoiding doing anyway. And as I walked into the shop, the song tune started playing and the lyrics were playing and I could hear it and I could remember one sentence of the song and I knew, of the lyrics, the bar that was coming through to me that was in my head and stuck in my head when I would wake up was, I want to stand with you on a mountain. So anyway, I go into the shop and I hear this song and I turn around and I just ask one of the shop assistants, what is the name of this song and who sings it, right? And the shop assistant, I don't think they could tell me the name of the song, but they were able to tell me that the band was a group called Savage Garden, an Australian band at the time. and that it was a new release. And I thought, well, I don't have a radio, so it's no surprise I've not heard of it before, because clearly I actually hadn't heard it. It was just a song that was on the radio, but it was being played to me to investigate. And so when I got home from the shops, of course, I went to my computer and I Googled Savage Garden with the first sentence of the song lyrics that was in my mind, and I got the rest of the song lyrics. Amazing, amazing. And my friends, here are the song lyrics that I was waking up to every morning. This was the message that was being given to me by my guides and guardians. I'm not going to read them all out to you now. Feel free to pause the screen and read them. This is a very powerful message. And once I found these lyrics, of course, I just cried and cried like a baby, as you do. And I just want to remind you the magic of this, if you've paused the video and read these lyrics, that this was a new release that I had never heard because I didn't have a radio. This was the song that was playing in my mind. And of course, this was Savage Garden's song, Truly, Madly, Deeply. Please do read it because it just takes my breath away. Now, interestingly, the relevance to me bringing this up today as well is, of course, to do with the fact that, yes, I'm talking about this type of stuff with you. But yesterday, I do have a radio now, okay? And yesterday, I happened to be walking past it. It wasn't turned on. I've walked past, I've gone through to the other room. I've looked at my little doggy and I said, shall we put the radio on? And I thought, well, there's no point waiting for an answer. He is a dog after all. So I've walked back to the lounge room and I've turned the radio on. And as I turned it on, this song came blaring out at me. And it just still to this day warms the cockles of my heart. And this is why I say I love my guardians and my guides. So I'm going to make a brief reference to the bucket list because this is based on the story that I shared with you last week about the visitation that I had and the experiences interacting with a Native American grandmother spirit and her granddaughter who was still living, and how the grandmother was using me basically as that medium, that intermedium, or whatever we want to call it, conduit, to send messages to her granddaughter. Now, most of the messages would come through in my dream state, in my sleep state, and I would then email the granddaughter, who was living in Canada as it happens, and I had no understanding, I can honestly tell you, of Canadian background or anything like that, but I would email her with what I was seeing in my dreams and ask her, do these have any meaning? Because I was seeing a lot of stuff that really was incredibly confusing for me. Anyway, the granddaughter would come back and say yes. Basically, every time I was able to tell her a dream, these were the stories. Her grandmother was giving me the stories through the dream state. So one of the dreams that has stayed with me is actually seeing the Native Americans walking on this very long journey in their traditional dress with paint on their face, and some of the men weren't even wearing shirts. They were walking along snowy paths, and it was like people were dying here, there, and everywhere, all around them. I recall at one point seeing a lady stopping along the path and bearing a baby beside a bush, things like that. Anyway, where I'm going with this is this was actually messages from the Native American grandmother, and as I say, it's validation and confirmation for the granddaughter that what she was getting from me was actually true communications, because the granddaughter actually came back after, because I was able to describe the feathers as well that they were wearing, and apparently they had meaning, which I didn't know. But anyway, she was like, yes, it does have meaning, and I can't talk to you about that because of course there's a cultural barrier, but if you Google Trail of Tears, you will learn, okay, which is what I did. It was how I learned about the Trail of Tears, and that's a story in itself. Now remember, I was living in an isolated part of Western Australia, and once I had had a number of dreams, I actually felt the presence of the grandmother in my waking moments, okay, and the communication was actually energetic, and it would be, I think I only ever started to hear voices from her a couple of times. Most of the time it was actually just through probably my heart. And I was able to recognize it because all of a sudden when she arrived on the scene, I was starting to feel a new awe, if you like, at my surroundings, which actually is pretty awesome at the time, realistically. But when we live within something, we take it for granted. It seems very mundane and boring. So, it takes that sparkle off. If you've got it all the time, I don't know how to explain it. But all of a sudden I was looking at my surroundings as if it was the first time I'd seen them. And it was, that fresh eyes thing, and amazement. I felt this constant amazement within my side, like, oh my gosh, look at the trees. Oh my gosh, look at that bird there. I've never seen anything so pretty in my life, this kind of thing. I was constantly amazed every day. And I started questioning, am I picking up on her feelings? Is she still hanging around me? Pretty sure it was. Of course, that was confirmed to me when I actually started to feel her presence in the car when I was driving around. It was like she wanted to go on a tour with me. So she wasn't just sticking around at the farm, she was actually hanging around with me. And I also picked up energetically that she wasn't going to be staying forever. She was just hanging around for a while because she actually was really interested. And I was picking up the feeling of, I'm not going to stay here forever, but I might stay for a little while and have a little holiday, and this, there was starting to be a thought in my head that was along the, oh my goodness me, I didn't know it was like that over here. I never ever thought to come here before. I would never have thought to come to Australia before, I passed, kind of thing. That was the feeling and thought that I got. So I emailed the granddaughter with some of the feelings that I was getting conveyed to me, and the granddaughter, obviously it gave her great joy and laughter. She said no, she never would have. She said had she been alive, no, she would never ever have considered going to Australia. And she said, and everything that you're describing to me about the grandmother and what you're picking up in the feelings basically is what she would have been like. So actually, yeah, pretty incredible stuff. What that taught me, I guess, is that when it comes to a bucket list, at one stage I was thinking, I need to write a bucket list. I need to write all the things down that I want to do before I actually do my transition. This is part of the creation of purpose and this kind of thing. And I began to realize, actually through the presence and visitation of this grandmother, that, what, if I don't get to do everything on my bucket list, which could be travel, that's okay. I can go and visit when I don't have a body. I don't have to worry about paying for airfares either, I suppose. So all things at the divine time in the divine way. So last week I talked about the guardian angel content. Now, for some reason, I seem to be dragging my toes releasing this one. And this is, it's almost ready for me to do. I've just got a couple of slides. I've got to work on the transcripts. I suspect that somewhere deep within me, I'm dragging my toes because it is such an important video for me. And I guess in many ways I could say, well, it's like being offered a plate of food and saving the best for last, I am so in love with my guardian angel that I just want to make sure that what I deliver does justice. And I really hear that in my voice. I was going to say just then, I doubt that I can personally do justice to the beauty of the connection with our guardian angels and our guides. And of course, that's the creator. But anyway, I'm going to rethink that thought that I just had. I doubt that I can do justice, and I'm going to turn that around, because this is what we do, isn't it? We recognize limitation in our thoughts, speech and behavior, and then we convert that to the positive. So I'm going to change that. I'm going to work on the phrasing of that in my own time and look to get this video up for you in confidence that I will do justice to the divine messages. So Soqued Hozi, the Angel of Divine Partnerships, was published this week. Now, if you're at all interested in getting a bit more understanding about the types of divine partnerships there are, then this is a good starting place as a video to explain some of them. And just a reminder, not all relationships that are divinely guided are actually for the long term or even romantic, and sometimes they are a brief interlude upon the journey to life, but they are divinely guided and inspired. Now, Phanuel, the Angel of Hope, is loaded and scheduled for this week. Now, this is actually such a vital element of life, is being able to retain and sustain hope. I could do probably a whole video just talking about hope and the need that, it's almost like if you don't have hope, this is what leads actually to end of life ideation. And we know this, I know this from my studies in mental health as well, is that the research into, and I've got to be careful how I phrase these things, end of life, is because people are feeling burdened and hopeless. They become despairing and they think that there is nothing that they can do to change it. Now, I will actually do a little bit of disclosure here as well. This was something that I learned personally. So this is where we talk about personal knowledge. When I was doing my studies and I learned this, I thought, oh, well, that just confirms what I already thought and believed based on my experiences. Now, to put this into perspective, I've spoken a bit today about some of the struggles that I've had to address through my life. One of them did include at one point in my life where I was really struggling. I'd lost my purpose. I had lost my connection and all the rest of it to the guides. That was me, by the way, blocking them. They were always there. I know that in hindsight. But I put the blockers on, and I was struggling with this ideology of, what is the purpose of life? What's the point of being here? Maybe it's just time to say goodbye, world, and hello to the next one, because I have no fear of this process, okay? Now, the reason why I'm mentioning this is because it was so important. I had lost hope, okay? I had believed that nothing could change. Now, the reason why I'm comfortable to mention this, and I might have to do a video on my experiences, but I want to explain to you that despite the fact that I had all of these really unhealthy ideas running through my head, I obviously reached a point. What changed for me was I had an anaphylactic attack, and it was my first one. It happened when I was about 42. And, it came out of nowhere, because who would have expected it? I developed an allergy to antibiotics. And anyway, long story short, I had an anaphylactic attack and I fought it. And apparently it's very unusual for people to have lived through it as long as what I did. But I fought it for about 6 hours before I was able to get in an ambulance. Now, the ambulance drivers did say to me afterwards that they thought they had lost me on the way. And I recall when I was being treated actually in the, because it was an outback surgery, because I was living in remote areas, I recall wondering why the ambulance drivers were actually lingering in the room when the medical staff were treating me. And it was because they thought I was going. They thought I wasn't going to make it. And so what happened for me after that was it became very transparent to me. It was like, don't even think about this hopelessness bit, because bottom line, girlfriend, you're the one that called the ambulance. You have a will to live underneath this for whatever the purposes are. So for me, I learned, and what I carried through from that experience was that I was, one, resisting change. I could have changed things at any time, but I was dragging my toes. So there was that, and I needed to change things personally in my life because I held no hope for the future within that current situation. So the outcome of where I'm going with this is I established that I needed to make the changes and I needed to be brave. And within 6 weeks of my anaphylactic attack, I had actually made some major life changes and shifted away from the problematic lifestyle that I was living. I was in an unhealthy relationship, whatever, it doesn't warrant really talking about. But either way, hope, right? Phanuel gives us messages on how to maintain or recreate hope when we've lost hope, okay? When our faith has become challenged, when we've lost our trust in the processes of life, we need to be crawling upon angels such as Phanuel, of course, along with the Creator, okay? So anyway, watch that video if you're feeling a bit hopeless and despairing. So just to recap, of course, we've loaded the colour content. We've got Magenta up this week, which you would have been able to access. And of course, this combines aspects of the heart chakra and the crown chakra, and probably even the base chakra as well, because we're looking at the pinks, combined, if I can speak, combined with a bit of blue to make purple hues. So it's a beautiful and very strong colour. Black, of course, also has been loaded this week. You will find that on the colour playlist as well. And then, of course, coming up next week, we step into the silvers and the greys. Now, silver is a colour that's generally associated with things like the divine feminine. It's considered to be a feminine colour. It's associated with intuition, among other things. And the silver video should be up on Tuesday. In fact, I say should. It is. It's loaded for Tuesday. I'll just have a quick yarn about grey. I'll try and make it very quick. Anyway, the grey video is going to be loaded. I think it's this Friday. If it's Tuesday and Fridays, I can't remember for the colour videos. But what I want to mention, this is not in the actual video itself. What I find is particularly interesting that while grey has a very interesting and obviously beneficial message, what I find interesting is that it is such a fashionable colour. And this is because, frankly, I consider it personally to be a very drab colour. It's lacking in vibrancy. And in fact, when I have done Reiki healing sessions and that kind of thing, look, the message itself in the video does talk about auric scanning. Now, the first time I knew about auras and auric scanning was actually through doing the healing, the Reiki. So where I'm going with this, trying to speak fast and probably mixing up the messages and all the rest of it. If you've got questions, ask me about it. But what happens when I do a healing session on a person, I actually see the outline of their body in this grey, blurry, fuzzy, as I say, drab type colour. And it is the pockets that I see within the person's aura that becomes the vibrant, colourful patches, shall we say, on this person's aura that convey additional messages to me. For instance, it can be symbolic of an old wound or a scar of which there may be a causal thought or emotion that's attached to that injury that remains with the person that needs to be unpacked, released, and let go of to allow for a full healing to occur. Now, to put this, to give you a picture of what this might look like, I'll give you an example of many years ago. I was actually doing Reiki on a person. It was before I actually really understood what was going on. And in hindsight, I see that part of the reason I was actually seeing these images was of validating for her. She was new to energy work. She was at that stage where people are like, is it real? Oh, it's a bit scary. It's a bit magical. It's all insane, right? That kind of thing, okay? So anyway, I'm doing this healing session on her, and I was able to turn around and say to her, I'm seeing a really bright colour on your left knee. And she was like, well, what does that mean? And I thought, well, I really don't know, but I'm seeing it, because I was developing my gifts. And then I said, look, my feelings are that you've got an injury there, that you've hurt your knee and you're struggling to move on from it. And she was like, no, because she was in a very happy place. And I thought, well, I must be doing something wrong, as you do. And then I said, well, actually, what I feel is that there's a lot of anger associated with whatever is going, the emotional cause of what's happening with this knee injury. And it's to do with family members. I was able to narrow it down, could be brother. When we talk about family, it could be brother, mother, sister, whatever, partner, whatever. I said, it's anger at a family member, this knee injury. And I said, so I'm just wondering, is this an issue that you're struggling to move forward on and to let go of? And she was actually able to, look, I'll cut this short. The long story was, yes, there was an injury that she did actually sustain, but it had been many years before. The short story is that, yes, she was able to validate. She actually had a scar on her knee of a wound that she had basically hurt herself, a fall or something like that, and banged her knee in a really bad way when she was much younger, and it was when she was angry at somebody in her family. So it was quite right. Now, when I'm doing scans on people within this scenario, this has always remained the case. The actual body is this murky grey colour, and then the bright colours come through, showing basically that there's an underlying problem for healing or an emotional need for them. So let's say somebody was feeling unloved and unsupported. I might see a lot of pink in the heart chakra area, which is actually, no, when they're judging themselves, if it was seeing pink, it would be like, yeah, they're struggling to actually be kind and accept themselves. So I guess to really summarise this quickly, when I talk about grey, for me, it's kind of like the blank canvas. If you were creating a painting or doing artwork, the grey that everybody finds so popular these days is colourless, drab. It's the blank canvas, and it's up to them to jump into the palette of life, grab some of those vibrant colours and add it to their life, so that they can feel more joy. So before I close out today, this is a very long video. I do apologise yet again. I thought it would be timely to mention protection techniques again, because we're in some crazy times at the moment globally. And so I thought it would be a good time to mention and encourage you to go about your days in peace and love, and to keep your own vibration high. Now, if you do feel compelled to be what we call a change maker and put yourself into potentially difficult situations, I would remind you that for all actions, there are reactions which we call consequences. They're the physical reactions. or the physical consequences of what we choose to do. And then we have karmic, which is the spiritual consequences to our decisions. Okay, so you know that what you put out there comes back at you one way or another. So I would encourage you to go about your business in peace, to avoid angry and reactive actions. If you feel that you need to stand your ground, to do so with the courage of your convictions in peace, following the guidance of your heart, your guides, your divine messengers, to keep your personal channel clear and to respond to any gut instincts that you may feel, because that's your inner knowing. You know, not everybody gets their messages via clairvoyance or clairaudio or whatever. Quite often it is this inner knowing, this really strong feeling in your gut that you need to either leave or to go somewhere. If you get that, follow it. It's your inner voice. If you have limited options about choices, then what I would recommend is that you use the protective blue bubble. And I will put the links to the videos that I've done up on protection as well. I'll put that into the video description, and of course there's timing chapters for you to access it. And just a reminder, if you feel unsafe at any time, do call upon the Creator and Archangel Michael, okay? And I've put the link to that video actually into the description as well, all just to help out. Stay safe. So my friends, it's been a very long video for a yarning one, and I'm sorry about that, but hopefully it's been helpful and informative for you. Just an update, I've not done any art reels. The quotes continue to go up. A reminder, of course, if there's a specific type of quote that you're interested in, let me know, leave some feedback, leave a comment. Oh yes, and please do feel free to like the content, share the content or whatever, and subscribe to the channel if you enjoy the content that I put up. And for now, I'm going to love you, leave you, wish you blessings upon blessings upon blessings, and stay safe. Take care. I'll catch you on the next one. Bye-bye for now.